Hello, my name's Rupert, and today I'm going to be discussing whether or not antivirus software is enough protection for your computers. So first and foremost, I know you've always been told you need antivirus software, and I've said it myself to customers thousands of times over the years. Modern operating systems will even pop up notifications if they don't detect that there's active protection on the system already running. And there's a good chance that you've used one or more of the suppliers, the software houses whose icons are on the screen at the moment. Maybe you've seen the software deployed, pushed out by your IT support team, or perhaps you've gone looking for antivirus software yourself in the past and seen these names out in the industry. So let's briefly review how traditional antivirus software works. Antivirus software has been around since the 1980s and was traditionally based on a library or a database being built up. So when a piece of malicious software has been detected, the researchers would look inside that software, look for some code, and then add that code to the library or the antivirus database, which then in turn, when any future files are run on a computer, they check, does this file look like the file that we've already got in the database? And if so, it's likely to be malicious, in which case we're going to block it or quarantine it, prevent that file from from executing further on your computer. This process meant that obviously your libraries, your virus definitions had to be up to date regularly, which is often an automated process towards the end. But at the same time, the question always arose as to what else was coming. What happens if your virus signatures were out of date? So what's changed? Well, the biggest change has been around what's known as zero-day malware. So traditionally, viruses were developed, were written, and then were distributed, and they'd be around for a very long time. Over the years, they've become more and more advanced, and these days it's possible for viruses to mutate, to change, to specifically avoid detection from those traditional library-based detection mechanisms. So you might find in the past there were hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of copies of a virus. These days one may only be seen on a handful of times, and then tomorrow it will mutate and look different or so on, specifically to avoid that sort of detection. The other challenge in this day and age is we're no longer just talking about viruses. So viruses are one of the types of malware that we see on a computer. Malware being undesirable software that we don't want to be running. So there's viruses, adware, rootkits, spyware, ransomware is one that we hear a lot about these days. Trojan horse, remote access malware designed to allow people into your computers rather than just running nasty things on them locally. Worms and keyloggers to name just a few. So very much the landscape has changed, it's evolved over time, and that's why we need to consider whether or not traditional antivirus software provides enough protection. So I mentioned zero-day a minute ago, so how much of a problem is zero-day malware? Well, one of our security partners, WatchGuard, run a site called Secplicity, on which you'll find the threat landscape. I put the link there on the screen. So some recent statistics I took, this is specifically targeting specific data from UK devices. So this information has come from companies in the UK who are using WatchGuard security appliances, and the data comes from those security appliances that are deployed. And as you can see from the screen, 87% of malware that was detected in a specific calendar month in the UK alone was zero-day. With only 13% of it would have been detected by traditional library-based signatures. So 87%, just to be clear, that's almost 9 in 10 pieces of malware that targeting your computers wouldn't have been detected if you were just running traditional antivirus software based on a signature database. I must stress at this point there are a lot of other security vendors out there, so the numbers that you're seeing on the screen are just coming from WatchGuard data, but it's the most accurate information we could find, the actual number of issues, the number of incidents would be far higher than you see on the screen when you consider all of the appliances, all of the statistics from all of the vendors put together. So that's just important. So is there a solution? There absolutely is a solution, and I'm going to apologise at this stage for the industry from the terminology and the acronyms and so on that I'm about to throw around. So I've seen this modern protection referred to as next-gen antivirus, cloud antivirus, AI-powered, machine learning. But the phrase that seems to have been standardized on is EDR, that's Endpoint Detection and Response. So as the name indicates, we're no longer just interested in detecting and perhaps quarantining or blocking a malicious file, which is the way that the traditional antivirus software would have worked in the past. As the name implies, they're very much trying to be more proactive about it. So modern EDR software, it's not just monitoring the contents of the file that's running on your computer and seeing if they've seen it before. They're actually watching what the files are doing. So when a process runs on the computer on execution, as per the diagram on the screen, the system's monitoring what is that file trying to do. Is it, for example, trying to make changes to your registry? Is it trying to make changes, copy programs into your Windows folder for them to be run at a later date? Is it trying to establish network or internet connections, connect to other computers or servers or network attached storage NAS drives on your network to encrypt the data or to take copies of it or so on? Is it trying to dial out to the internet to download some more nasty software or to dial home to a command and control server, for example, in the example of ransomware and uploading that decryption key? So by monitoring what a process is trying to do, it gives the system the ability to hopefully roll back in the event of an incident, remove those registry keys, remove those files, give you a list of devices or servers that it has connected to, with a view of remediating any changes that have been made, and hopefully with a view of getting everything back to restoring the system to the state it was in before the infected file ran in the first place. Obviously, what it's going to ultimately try and prevent as much of that from happening in the first place as possible. So it is very much still proactive protection, but the discovery and response part of it adds a huge element of control and power from a remediation point of view. It's worth mentioning at this point that this is not all just kind of computer-based. Many of the EDR solutions out there are actually backed by a SOC, a Security Operations Center, where you'll have real-life, very much experienced security engineers who, if the system can't decide it automatically what the action is, whether or not a process is an active threat or it's just something that the system hasn't seen before, the engineers can very quickly analyze what that process is trying to do and then manually determine whether it should in fact be blocked or whether in fact it's a false positive, in which case they can whitelist it and allow it to run on your computers in the future. So we're no longer just reliant upon the technology running on the computer when it comes to EDR. There's normally a SOC service behind it as well. So my verdict at this stage would be to say that no, antivirus software alone is no longer enough protection for your computer. In this day and age, the threats that we're dealing with, the type of malware that's out there, particularly the risk these days to businesses from ransomware, to name just one that's very popular, is just too high a risk to rely solely on traditional based antivirus software. So next actions for you to take at this point. Firstly, just check if you're still actually using antivirus software on its own. Ask your IT support team when they last reviewed your antivirus software. Is it just still basic antivirus, or is there an EDR element to it? Is it powered by a SOC behind the scenes? Does it have ransomware protection in it? Can it undo changes made to the system, or is it just still going to basically block or allow the file based on criteria? I'd always encourage people to check you're not just renewing outdated software subscriptions each year. It's amazing when we start working with a new client how often they're still paying for old software just because they get a renewal invoice each year and not actually checking whether or not it's still the right fit, the right solution for their business. And ultimately ask business associates and peers what they're using to protect their business in this day and age. My second takeaway action would be very simple. If you haven't got modern protection in place, consider adding EDR to your systems immediately. I'll put some links on the page that you can see on the screen, netprimates.com/tips/antivirus. There'll be some resources in there for some of the EDR solutions that I've mentioned, along with the slides from this presentation if you find it of use to you. Lastly, if you find this video useful, please do share it with anyone else you think may benefit, and you can subscribe to the site or visit the site below to see other videos that we've released in this series, specifically designed to help small business owners with all aspects of cybersecurity. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.